Joshua Seth. I think you all know who he is. There's Ty from Digimon, Tetsuo from the 2001 version of Akira, and last but not least, Knives from Trigun.
Hey, everybody.
So I guess I'll start the interview off. Like, how did you get into voice acting?
It's a good question. It depends how far back I go. I mean, when I was in high school, my dad was a radio psychologist, sort of like that old show Frasier.
Oh yeah.
And so I would sometimes go up and watch him record his show. And I was already a theater kid. And so when I went to film school a few years later, I went to Tisch School of the Arts at NYU in Manhattan. And they had a radio station, like a real radio station. It was a college radio station, but it was 50,000 watts going out to 3 states in New York City. Like it was a real station. So I grew up in the Midwest in a small town in Ohio. New York was new and unfamiliar, but that radio station, that felt very familiar because of my dad and going to see him do his show. So basically, I took the training to be able to have my own radio show while I was at NYU. And I would call in and prank myself because the show was like in the middle of the night and I didn't think anybody was watching. So, or listening rather. So between records that they told me what I was supposed to play, right? And WNYU New York City, I do like the call letters and things. And then I'd say, let's go to the phones. And there was nobody on the phones. And so it'd be like, hello, young man, could you play some klezmer music? Man, this is our college radio station. We don't play klezmer music, but the young people, and I did so many different voices. I was able to cut together a demo from that. And after college, when I moved out to Hollywood to get an agent, that was it was the cuts from my radio show in New York that got me the agent. And that's basically how I got into voiceovers.
Uh, what's your favorite character that you voice?
Well, there's two. I mean, Ty, because he gave me a career in Digimon, of course, because I was out in LA for about 7 years kicking around I do one episode on a show here, or I had some series like with Saban. I did a whole series. I did the title character of Honeybee Hutch, which nobody's ever seen. It was 65 episodes though, so it was a great training ground. And then from there, I was able to get into doing Alpha 5 after Richard Horvitz left for Power Rangers, same company, and it was the same company that did Digimon. So definitely Ty because first of all, it's my own voice just pitched up a little, so it feels like me, and also because I've been doing them for 20 years. Yeah, I mean it's the obvious answer, but it's the real answer.
I always see him on your Facebook everywhere.
Yeah,
I just wanted to know.
sure, sure.
And you said there was another one.
Well, I know you're going to ask me about Akira, so I didn't want to jump the gun on that. But when I was a film student in New York City, I actually went and saw the original streamlined dub of Akira. And way back then, anime wasn't really a thing. Obviously, it was before Digimon and Pokemon and before it became mainstream. So I'd never seen anything like it. And I came out of this art house theater having seen the original version of Akira, just mind blown, thinking, wow, this is like the future of animation and I want to do this. So I had that in my mind when I put my demo together and I went out to LA to get a voice agent. And then fast forward, I don't know, 7, 8 years, Kevin Seymour, the director of the Pioneer dub, when they got like $1 million to redo it, said, and so that's in the world of dubbing, that's a lot, and they were able to remix the M&E track and the orchestration and rescript it and revoice it, and then he asked me to play the lead, to play Tetsuo. So yeah, Tetsuo is my other favorite character because that was the character that brought my whole voiceover journey full circle from just being a fan and wanting to be involved to actually playing the part.
What do you think of Jan Rabson as Tetsuo?
I haven't heard that performance in like decades, in a really long time. I mean, I remember he had a different take on it than me. Of course, the style of acting was different in animation back then too. So I don't want to comment on it because it's been so long since I've heard it. I don't remember it like my ears bleeding or anything when I came out of the theater, so I don't think it was bad or anything. It was just that original streamlined dub, it didn't make as much sense in terms of the script and the way that they cut everything together. So I'm sure as an actor he had to work within those limitations. But what I wanted to bring to the role was more realism, more of a feeling that I was actually inhabiting this character and these things were actually occurring to him. So it wasn't that kind of stilted animation thing, that people do. It was I was going for realism, so I was perhaps had a different objective in mind when I was interpreting the role.
Did any of Tetsuo's scenes ever stress your voice out?
I know how to place my voice, and the nature of voiceovers is that there's a lot of waiting around, a lot of hurry up and wait. Get to the studio really early. Here's the script, mark it up, look it over, and then beep, 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 and we're going to roll, 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 and then stop. And they have to go through and make sure everything lines up and tweak the levels and stuff like that. And you wait, and during that time, you can rest your voice. But also, I come from a theater background, and I did a lot of singing. So when I was a kid, going back again, I did 8 shows a week of equity musical theater. And I grew up in this small town, but there was a big musical theater where touring Broadway shows would come through. It was 550 seats originally when I got involved with that theater, and it was 2,500 seats by the time I graduated high school. And pretty much all the way through from the time I was 8 to 18, I did 8 shows a week, singing and, I mean, we can call it dancing, but I was singing and moving in these musicals. So you learn how to train your voice as an instrument and get everything it has to give without stressing and straining it, because you have to do these performances every night, sometimes twice a night.
What does it feel like when people tell you that, they come up to you and they say, "Hey, Ty was a huge part of my childhood"?
I'm really flattered and glad, and I'm grateful that the character that I was playing, for which people remember me, represents courage, crest of courage, after all, because that's a great quality to develop in yourself, and I think that's why they have found the character of Ty to be so helpful to them. So yeah, I'm just grateful to be able to represent that, and that they know me for that, and not some of the evil characters necessarily. If the evil characters like Young Knives and Trigun, for instance, if those had made a big impression on them in their lives, then that'd be a problem.
I was one of the guys who I think I reminded you that you played Knives because I was like, you were like, "Who is that on there? The blonde
You know,
kid." I'm like,
I know I played him, and I remember always that butterfly scene, that famous scene. It was that image, that kind of image that I wasn't recognizing.
and I was like, "That's Knives," and you're like, "I don't remember playing him," and I'm like, I had to send you like a YouTube clip. I said, "I'm
Yeah, yeah,
pretty
yeah.
sure that's you."
That's right. Of course, that was me. It's been a while, and also, it, at a certain level, it becomes a job where you're just going in and recording stuff every day. That's one of the reasons I left voiceovers. I only came back for the consistency for Digimon Try and then Kazuna, because I have kids now, and I want to leave that legacy for them, that I voiced this character, and for the fans all the way through all 8 movies in the series and all 20 years. So I came back for that. But otherwise, I left to go on the road and tour and get back to live theater and presentations, because I didn't like how it had turned into a job. And it's a job where you're living in a little soundproof box,
Mm.
windowless room all day long, every day, never able to see the sun or actually talk to anyone.
Do you have a favorite line of Ties?
Uh, Come on, guys, let's save the world. That's the line I always use to get into the character. Come on, guys, let's save the world. Because that's his energy, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
He's the happy-go-lucky kid.
Yeah. He can be
Uh,
contemplative too, especially as he gets older. He starts to consider what are the ramifications of what he's being called upon to do, which he will eventually do. But there's going to be all kinds of destruction, and he's like a reluctant warrior at that point.
if Digimon ever got an uncut dub, where they didn't cut so much out, left the original Japanese music and stuff in, would you come
Yes.
back to play Ty for that?
I've always come back whenever they've asked, but I have no control over when they ask or when they're, I don't know when they're recording. The only reason I was able to come back for Try is because the fans on social media kept PMing me and asking, "Are you coming back for this? I've heard they're recording it." I'm like, "I don't know. I'm on the road. I'm on tour. I have no idea what's going back in Hollywood in this studio." And then I don't think he'd mind me saying because it's pretty well known, but Jeff Nimoy, who's a great friend, and he was director on season 1 and played voices as well. So he was involved in that recording for Try. And he posted something, just came from the recording session. He wasn't supposed to do that apparently, and they made him take it down. But in the meantime, it was like proof that the recording is going on. So I reached out to the studio and I'm like, "Hey, what am I, chap liver? Like nobody asked me. What are you like? Why? Why wouldn't anybody? Why would they be bringing back old cast members and not ask me?" And then to his credit, Jamie Simone, who was in charge of the production, picked up the phone and called me and said, "Hey, my bad. We didn't think you would do this because you don't do voiceovers anymore." I'm like, "Yeah, but it's Digimon, so I'll make an exception." And they had already started recording Ty with another actor. And I don't know who that was, and I don't necessarily even want to know because they said, "Well, if you'll fly in, we'll erase what's already been laid down and start over," which is what happened.
Do you have any like memorable lines from Tetsuo that you really like?
Yeah, but it's not a word. It's just where he's on the ground and he's got. I felt that was my best work in that movie. It's not words. It's just more like Frank Welker grunting and making noises. And so he's on the ground on the sidewalk and his guts are spilling out.
Oh yeah,
And yeah, and I actually like was in that position in the recording studio. I had to move the mic around and stuff so I could go all that kind of stuff for a long time. And I just loved how it came out, and it really sounded real.
I think my favorite Tetsuo line is mainly because I watched it when I was a teenager, watched that version when I was a teenager,
Sure.
and hearing Ty say it, it kind of blew my mind when he's pushing the bike and he says the F word. I was like, whoa, Ty just
Oh,
cussed.
I don't remember that.
It's like it's the scene where he kind of, I think he hits the clown or something, or Kaneda is telling him, "Come on, let's go," and
Yeah.
they're chasing down the clowns, and he is trying to push his bike, and he's like, you know, I was
You,
like,
you know, hmm. Sometimes I do watch this movie, but it's usually at Comic Cons, and so I'm kind of distracted with people wanting autographs or whatever, or maybe I'm supposed to go up and make a speech. So the last time I actually saw Akira or Akira, depending on how you want to pronounce it, was in Edinburgh, Scotland, which is where they do the Fringe Festival, and I always wanted to go there. And they did a con just I wanted within a year of COVID, and so they flew me over there, and the whole convention was themed around Akira because it's the 20th anniversary of Akira, and they screened the movie, and I got to sort of relive the whole process with in a live setting with the fans. That was pretty special, and people were dressed up and stuff. And oh, they had I have artwork on my wall actually that they commissioned an artist to do a representation of the poster image, but with Neo Tokyo all around. I'm looking at it right over there, and I just love it. Like that's the most artful project that I ever voiced is Akira.
I've got like a really special relationship with Akira. Both dubs. My brother and I were fighting like really bad when I first watched Akira. I was about 17 or 18.
Yeah.
And that was the only anime he would watch. He despises anime. And
Huh,
I
but
told,
just that one.
yeah, that's the only one I've ever seen him watch. I bought it at a thrift store on VHS, and I told him, I said, "Well, I found this movie Akira," and then he was like, "Akira." He's like, "Well, let's start talking about it," and we forgot we were fighting that whole year.
It's it sort of transcends the genre, and the proof of that is that Akira has been so informative of other works of cinema, like everything from The Matrix to South Park has referenced Akira.
I think even
It's
the late
iconic.
the later Dragon Ball Z even references it. I know that other
Right.
shows like the Tenchi series and stuff like that, it references Akira. I mean,
Yeah.
it was huge at the time, especially the redub. I mean, I like the redub. I like both dubs about equal for different reasons. I like the streamlined dub because I know it's not the best, but the overacting in it is just so fun to watch. And then I
That's what
love
I meant by it was a bit stilted. You could call overacting, but also that was the style back then. And I think I was part of that first wave of more naturalistic, realistic reads in voiceovers, which now that's common, that's the norm. Back then, what came before anime was you would go all the way back to Hanna-Barbera or Warner Brothers classic Bugs Bunny cartoons, and everything was it was very, very charactery, very cartoony, very over the top. So when they were acting as people rather than say animals, they would still do them as characters.
so
My
what was
background being theater, though, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do actual real acting because that voice acting is acting.
oh to me it's just as important. What was
Hang on
your,
1 second. I've got a little tech issue here. 1 second.
okay.
I must have said something that triggered the, now I can't say the word again, that triggered the music to come through the thing that is connected to Amazon. And so it was playing in the background really loud.
I've actually, when I interviewed Bo, my entire recorder shut off and I missed some of the interview. So, um,
You cut
anyway,
that
like I
part
was,
out. Yeah.
yeah.
So you
Anyway,
were
like
saying,
like I was saying, I really like the overacting that Jan and Cam Clark did. I mean,
Cam
they were
Clark,
like
yeah.
the shining features to me in that dub.
Yeah.
But you and Johnny, you guys played really great off each other.
Yeah, Johnny's great. I've enjoyed hanging out with him at Comic Cons too, and he's a musician. So, at, so many of us in the voice acting field that have careers that last a long time anyway, come from a music background, because speaking is just singing in staccato. It's you're just not holding the note out, but you know how to play more notes if you have a background in music, and Johnny does as well. Even Laura Jill Miller, who played Kari in Digimon, she was in musicals like on Broadway when she was young. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
She was in
Um,
Annie,
I didn't know that at all.
pretty sure. Yeah.
You said you were doing something outside of voice acting. What is that?
These days, well,
Yeah.
because of the pandemic, I stopped obviously live touring since everything is shut down. But I've been doing virtual shows and speeches and trainings and hosting and emceeing virtual events here. For this is a whole home studio that I'm broadcasting from right now. Obviously, this is a green screen behind me, but I've got lights and mics and monitors and decks and all kinds of stuff around me. And for years, I toured as a mentalist, like a magician of the mind. So first, I started doing a virtual version of the show, which is at at first I wasn't sure how that would work, but it's worked great, and I've been able to entertain people all over the country, all over the world, really, for ticketed events and company events and just all kinds of things. Then I created a virtual game show that I also do from here. Then I started doing keynote speeches on communication skills and using your voice to make an impact. And then I started running voiceover classes from here as well and training. So, in fact, maybe I should mention that is I can give your viewers something just for watching this
Yeah.
far. If you're interested in being a voice actor, I put together like a quick start guide. If you go to joshuaseth.com/VO, that's not on my menu or anything. You only know about it if you see something like this. So joshuaseth.com/VO, and you can get a quick start guide to doing voiceovers. And then if it's something that you're interested in, you can join my monthly Zoom class where I do audition technique, mic technique. I help to identify people's money voice, which is like, how are you bookable? What's the quality of your voice and your energy that would fit into a certain category where people would be likely to hire you. And then we run scenes, we do scene study together, and it's just great. We do it over Zoom. And then I've also got a training, like a whole voice training, because voice acting is acting, and the voice is the instrument that you use to portray those characters. So I created a whole, I think it's close to 40 videos, a whole series of voice training videos, exercises, and insights that people I've had, I don't know, a couple hundred people probably go through it at this point to learn. Even if I've even had people that are already legit actors and voice actors and speakers go through this, because whoever trains us to use our voice, if you don't come from the theater or a background in singing, you could strain your voice. You don't know what your voice is capable of. You can't hit the highs or the lows like this. And you don't really know what you're capable of. And once you do train it, it extends beyond voice acting, because your voice is what you use to communicate your personality to other people in all your relationships, personally and professionally. So I've really enjoyed putting that together here. And I've done that all from this home studio since the pandemic hit.
Well, that sounds really incredible.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun with it, and I've got a great group going in this monthly voice acting class on Zoom. Some of whom have been, actually, most of whom have been with me since the beginning, almost a year ago, and it's been great to see the progress.
Well, I've got to say thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Bye bye.